Base details. If I were fierce and bald and short of breath, I'd live with Scarlet Majors at the base and speed glum heroes up the line to death. You'd see me with my puffy, petulant face, guzzling and gulping in the best hotel, reading the roll of honour. Poor young chap, I'd say. I used to know his father well. Yes, we've lost heavily in this last scrap. And when the war is done and youth stone dead, I'd toddle safely home and die in bed. Well, in 1917, Siegfried Sassoon wrote those stark lines when he faced the horror of millions dying in the trenches, when the generals at the base didn't even have to suffer the whiff of cordite. He was angered by the fact that there seemed to be two sets of rules, one for the common man or the cannon fodder, and another for the protected leaders. Well, perhaps I might paraphrase his sentiment and express how I feel today. I'm angry. I will not take to the street protest with the possibility of giving the COVID-19 a human vehicle, but anger can be expressed in more ways than shouting. So, leaders of every hue, let it be noted that I am angry. And in times past, when you were angry, you wrote an open letter to the papers. So, I have an open video message to my leaders, and it might go like this. Akara, I believe that's how we traditionally greet each other in officialdom land. It's a kind of catch-all opening that neither confirms or denies that the following, what I have to say, will be either good or bad news. So here's my thing. I have been a virtual storm of emotions all week, and I just had to let someone know. And as you're the folk I remember contacting me, let me see, when was it now? It was around an election, I think. I'm almost certain it was earlier this year, or was it? Anyway, the date doesn't matter. It's just that when you called to tell me that you cared about me and my family and my business and my dreams, my patriotic aspirations, my worries about my health, my fears about aging, the charitable causes I support, my church, my kids, my grandkids, the Dubs, the six in a row. In fact, pretty much anything I mentioned, you nodded and said, absolutely, that will be a priority going forward. Now, a little part of me, that inner cynic that we tried to suppress was whispering, sure, they'll say anything to get your vote, Rob. Well, that was saying, don't listen. But I took you at your word and sir, there you are in a job, thanks to me and everyone else who put an X beside your name on the 8th of February. Let's call us the believers. And we trusted you to do the right thing. And everything seemed fine, and after a protracted period of horse trading, the civil war ended, and a government was formed. However, in the middle of all that, a crisis unfolded that has revealed some very worrying flaws in what mathematicians might call my assumptions. You see, I assumed we were on the same side. I assumed you would keep your word. I assumed I mattered. Alas, cracks have begun to appear in my assumptions. And who revealed the cracks? Well, it appears that one of the lesser talked about side effects of the COVID-19 virus is that it exposes bullshit. Now, we saw its effects across the water first. Oh, how we laughed when Boris seemed to flounder at every turn. We mocked as he paid the price for having unprotected treks into factories and communities. We collectively tut-tutted when his inner voice, Dom Cummings, travelled 200 miles when everyone else was restricted to local access only, and not even the proclaimers were allowed to walk 500 miles. Then COVID the Revealer cut a swathe across America. The Don asked, could we ingest bleach? Oh, how we laughed. We smugly looked on. You, our leaders, were so good. We were like God himself on creation day. We said, it is good. But it wasn't good, was it? We're in this together, you all said. Party politics didn't matter, you said. Blue shirt, black shirt, flak jacket, red flag, green flag, no flag. We have a common enemy. We have a common goal. Emergency measures, bunker cabinets. We must all pay the price. So I did. My business almost evaporated. I speak at conferences, and so as gatherings are prohibited, that's not possible. I pastor a church, and as we're not able to gather or assemble, that's stopped too. I've missed 2 funerals of very close relatives, as that is prohibited. The charities I support are unable to fundraise, so we're in a funding crisis nightmare. I can't even have family gatherings as we exceed the regulation numbers. I've seen my parents cocooned, isolated, quarantined and frightened. I've been unable to travel to see my daughter in South Africa, or my brothers in the UK, or now indeed in Kildare. I've carried my cross believing you would too. I've cancelled holidays and events and senior citizens clubs and pretty much life in general. Remember, we had common cause when you called to my door. My life is unrecognisable. I see why, and I'm willing to stick to the plan. On the other hand, as I sit in my human contact-free trench waiting for the next barrage from COVID-19, I keep reading of how you and all the crew in Kildare Street are taking a different slant on things. I've mused as I heard you were taking a pay increase. Interesting, I thought. I worried as some of you attended a very public and very mass gathering military style funeral. I despaired as some of you not only slept on the job, but actually slept in the job. I smiled as some called for the opening of businesses because it was your business that was being hit. But I stood by our doorstep agreement. That's what mates do, right? Then I hear that there was a golf outing. Not for charity, not for life and death, just for the crack. Judges, ministers, EU commissioners, journalists, just a few dozen more party faithful than is allowed by law, assembling together. At least I now know who our top level of lawmakers are answerable to. Apparently, the Irish Hotel Federation. And almost schoolboy like, you protested, but sir, I didn't know Casso was having so many over. But sir, I wasn't there all day. But sir, the hotel said you wouldn't mind. But sir didn't wash when I was an out-of-line teenager. And it certainly shouldn't be a leader's explanation. So who benefits from such a betrayal of confidence? Well, the only winner I can see is anarchists. Let's put on the high-vis jackets and rouse a rabble. Who let the dogs out? You did. And as this unfolded over the past week, my resolve has been shaken, my compliant behaviour challenged, and my belief that I am safe in your hands is greatly diminished. In fact, the idea that we now have two sets of rules is beginning to percolate in my thought processing. Perhaps it was my memories of my But Sir days that got me thinking of that great anti-war poem, Base Details by Sassoon, and I reluctantly studied it, but it seems oh so relevant, and indeed, today, I might paraphrase it. If I had neck and pull and lots of gall, and could say one thing and do another, I'd get a cushy number in the doll. And all your protests I would smother. I'd say, we need to all pull in our belts, when all the while I'm punching holes in mine. When all you know disintegrates and melts, I'll try and ensure that my world is just fine. And when the COVID passes and your losses barely get a mention, I'll remind you that we saved the holy masses and toddle off to collect my nice fat pension. Kind regards, Bob Carley, angry husband, father, son, brother, grandfather, pastor, speaker, counsellor, sufferer, and for now, still believer.